There is a fence post standing in a yard in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. It went into the ground in 1887. That is not a typo. 1887. It has been through 138 winters, 138 cycles of freeze and thaw, 138 summers of heat and rain and standing water at the base. And when the man who owns that farm pressed his thumbnail into the wood last spring, it did not give. Not even slightly. No rot, no soft spots, no crumbling. The grain is tight, the wood is solid, and the treatment that protected it cost $3. Before this video ends, I am going to show you a document from the Canadian Conservation Institute that museums use to preserve 400-year-old iron artifacts. The chemistry in that document is the same chemistry your grandfather used on his tools. And it is the same chemistry the wood treatment industry has spent 80 years making sure you would never think to use on yours. I'm not going to tell you this is some lost ancient secret. It isn't lost. It's sitting on a shelf at every bulk supplement retailer in America for $3 a bag. The only thing that disappeared was the knowledge of what it does. You already know this reaction. You've seen it your whole life and just never had a name for it. That dark staining on a cast iron pan when you cook with acidic food. That blue-black color on antique ironwork that has somehow survived centuries without crumbling. The ink in a medieval manuscript that has lasted 800 years on parchment. All of it is the same chemistry. Tannin meets iron. They react. Something stable forms. Something that lasts longer than anything a hardware store has ever sold you. Here's what's actually happening when tannin contacts rusted metal or wood. Tannin is a naturally occurring compound found in extraordinary concentrations in oak bark, chestnut wood, tea leaves, grape skins, and pomegranate rind. That slight drying feeling on your tongue when you drink strong black tea or dry red wine, that's tannin binding to proteins. And when tannin meets iron oxide, which is what rust is, the tannin molecules bind to the iron ions and convert them into a new compound called ferric tannate. Blue-black. Insoluble in water. Bonded directly to the steel surface at the molecular level. It doesn't sit on top of the rust and peel away later. It transforms the rust itself into the protective layer. The disease becomes the cure. That's not a poetic description. That's the chemistry. Formally documented in 1813 by French chemist Henri Braconnot. And the Canadian Conservation Institute still publishes it today as a standard procedure for treating corroded iron artifacts that museums intend to preserve for centuries. What the Smithsonian uses to keep 400-year-old farm tools intact is the same compound you can mix in a mason jar for $3. On an Amish farm in Lancaster County in the 1800s, every iron tool on the property got the same treatment every autumn. A strong brew of oak bark tea, thick and dark, applied with a rag, then sealed with beeswax or linseed oil from the flax crop. No hardware store, no synthetic chemical, no branded product. Just chemistry understood from the land that had been passed down from generation to generation since before anyone called it chemistry. The same system was used by Roman leather workers who discovered it by accident in tanning vats and passed it to the blacksmiths. Japanese swordsmiths developed their own version using fermented persimmon juice. West African iron workers used acacia pods and shea bark before the monsoon season. Iron Age bog bodies have been found in northern Europe with intact iron blades beside them, more than 1,000 years old, preserved not by any deliberate treatment, but by the naturally high tannin content of the peat water. 4 civilizations, 4 continents, all arriving at the same conclusion independently. Tannin protects iron. It always has. The global auto parts and rust treatment industry generates over $400 billion annually. Roughly $90 billion of that comes from rust damage alone. Replacement panels, brake lines, suspension components that should have lasted decades. The commercial rust converter products sitting on every hardware store shelf, $15 to $30 a bottle, list tannic acid as their primary active ingredient. Pull up the safety data sheet on any major brand rust converter. There it is, right in the chemical composition section. They take $3 worth of naturally occurring powder, dissolve it in petroleum solvents, put it in a branded bottle, and sell it back to you at 10 to 15 times the cost. The chemistry inside that bottle is functionally identical to what an Amish blacksmith was brewing from oak bark in 1880. That's not a coincidence. That's a business model. I came across this when I had a bench full of tools that had gotten away from me, a mattock left out too many winters, trowels with serious surface rust, a draw hoe I'd had since my 20s that I couldn't bring myself to replace. I tried the usual things: wire brushing, WD-40, navel jelly straight from the tube. They helped temporarily. 6 months later, the orange crept back. I came across the tannic acid chemistry, mixed up a batch, and spent one afternoon going through every rusted tool on that bench. That was almost 12 years ago. The mattock is still in the garden shed. The draw hoe is on the wall. Not one of them has rusted to anything worse than a faint surface patina. 12 years. $3 of powder. One afternoon. Here's exactly how to use it. And I want to be clear about something first. This is the simplest metal treatment on this entire channel. But there's one mistake that almost everyone makes the first time, and it makes the treatment completely ineffective. Food-grade tannic acid powder. Search that exact phrase online and it's in the first 3 results. Bulk Supplements is one reliable brand. A 100-gram bag runs $3 to $5 and treats roughly 40 square feet of rusted metal. That's an entire set of garden tools. Every iron hinge on a shed. A full season of cast iron maintenance. From a single bag. Mix 4 grams of tannic acid powder into 100 milliliters of warm distilled water. Stir until dissolved. The solution turns the color of strong black tea. Now here's the upgrade most people skip, and it's the difference between a good result and a permanent one. Add a teaspoon of navel jelly and stir it in. Research published in Advances in Materials Science and Engineering found the optimal formula is 3% tannic acid combined with 10% phosphoric acid. The phosphoric acid helps the tannin penetrate deeper into the rust layer and converts remaining rust into ferric phosphate, which is equally stable. Navel jelly is phosphoric acid sold at any hardware store for $2 to $3. That's your formula. Total cost, $3 to $6. Now here's the one thing people get wrong, and it's the reason most people try this once and think it didn't work. They try to remove the rust first, sand it back to bare metal, wire brush it to shiny. That is the wrong approach. The tannic acid needs existing rust to react with. You are not removing the rust. You are changing what the rust is. Remove only what's already detached, the loose flaking material that's blocking good contact. Leave the bonded rust layer in place. That's your raw material. Take a wire brush or steel wool and knock off the loose material only. Then brush the solution evenly across the surface. Within 10 to 15 minutes, the color shifts. Orange-brown to dark gray to blue-black. That's the conversion happening in front of you. Ferric tannate forming in real time. Let it dry completely, 2 to 4 hours. Then apply a second coat. The Canadian Conservation Institute specifically calls for multiple thin coats rather than one thick one. Thin coats fully dried between applications build a denser and more adherent layer. After the second coat cures, finish with whatever suits the application. For garden tools, axes, knives, boiled linseed oil or melted beeswax. For vehicle frames and undercarriages, rubberized undercoating spray. For cast iron cookware, reseason in a 350-degree oven as normal. One honest note because it always belongs here. This significantly reduces corrosion. It does not make metal immune under all conditions. In high chloride environments, sea air, heavy road salt, the layer will degrade over time and need reapplication. For most outdoor and garden use, that's a once-a-season touch-up, taking 20 minutes using powder from a bag you bought years ago. In 2003, the EPA forced the residential lumber treatment industry to stop using CCA, chromated copper arsenate, on lumber sold for home use. Arsenic. The industry had been treating the wood in children's playground equipment and backyard decks with a substance containing arsenic. It required regulatory pressure to end it. The builders who used the linseed oil and tannic acid system never needed the EPA to intervene. Their formula was already safe, already effective, already proven by 2,000 years of continuous use across multiple continents. The formula cannot be patented. You cannot patent tannic acid. It is a natural compound that predates the patent system by centuries. What cannot be patented cannot generate licensing revenue. What cannot generate licensing revenue cannot be advertised. And what is not advertised disappears from public knowledge one generation at a time. Somewhere in the last 100 years, as the hardware store filled up with branded rust converters in branded containers, this knowledge stopped being passed down. The tools treated with it are still standing. The knowledge just quietly sat on a shelf and gathered dust. $3. One afternoon, and it's back in your hands. I don't know what brought you here. Maybe it's the axe that came back from a camping trip orange. Maybe it's the truck frame you've been putting off. Maybe it's the cast iron pan sitting in the corner of the kitchen since last winter. Maybe you just like knowing how things actually work, and ended up here at midnight following a question you couldn't let go of. It doesn't matter. The rust on whatever you're looking at right now is not a problem waiting for an expensive solution. It's a raw material waiting for the right chemistry. $3. 45 minutes, and the rust goes to work for you. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.